Hi everybody, this is Christy. I am the Intimate Warrior. I thank you so much for stopping by, and as always, I send you love. So I posted a video like 3 days ago thinking that it was the entire video, and I apologize because it wasn't, and it was labeled The Dance. So I have put that as private, which I'm going to delete. And this is replacing that video with the entire video along with it. So please stay with me, and I apologize for the confusion and mix-up there, and enjoy. Hi everybody, this is Christy. I am the Intimate Warrior. I thank you so much for stopping by, and as always, to my previous videos, and especially my current situation or my current understanding. And so my husband came home on Sunday, and I had mentioned in my previous video that because of my understanding of a connection now between him and I, and how I can really love him on a more spiritual level, and you can say deeper level, if you will, but it's when we actually hear even that word deeper, we can get to a complication of attachment. So spiritual love is a whole lot different than the love that mankind has invented or began to change and transform. And so my thought was, when my husband came home, my spirit really wanted to just run up to him like I used to do in my past, when he was gone doing things. But I didn't. I was exercising when he finally came home in that afternoon, and he didn't come upstairs, and I didn't go downstairs. I found it very difficult to get to that movement. It was very difficult for my mind and my heart and my body to get in alignment with what is good, the overall goodness of things. I really wanted to, but then my ego was still there saying, well, if he's not willing to come up the stairs, if he's not willing to meet you halfway, Christy, let's go ahead and stay right here where you are. And he eventually came upstairs after getting his things and belongings and brought them into the house. But actually, he didn't come upstairs to begin with because our friend was still here. And so he was saying bye to her because they drove together to this event to save on gas and, to give each other company. So as he came upstairs, I was still exercising, and I really wanted to stay in my exercising mode, okay? I really wanted to. That's what my ego was trying to feed me to do. Stay here. You stay right here. Don't move. Don't budge. Don't change. I ended up taking a break. We were talking about things and just being normal. I finally took a break, and I was sitting in my chair here trying to relax and wipe off all the sweat. And he was about to go back outside, and I wanted to just stay here. I didn't want to. My ego kept me almost locked in my chair. But I had to force myself to stand up. And then I grabbed him and I hugged him. That's how powerful the ego is, the devil is, Satan is the bad that exists within this reality. All because of ego, all because of our own suffering. Our own suffering will make us make the wrong decisions. And we never end up completing our path. And so I wrote a bunch here, and so I didn't rush. I didn't hug my husband when I really wanted to, but I caught myself in that mindset. I didn't want to get off of my elliptical, but I caught myself in that mindset. I didn't want to get off of my chair, but I caught myself in that mindset, and then I changed by my movement. When we actually see our bad behavior and are in awareness of it, of mind and in heart, and we actually decide to make a different decision and move with it, that's our action. Our action becomes the overall greatest good. And it can therefore change the mind, therefore healing the heart. But if we stay in fright mode, and in defense all the time, and in fear all the time, and in hate, all of those, lower vibrational emotions, we fail to actually change ourselves to become our greatest self. So my mind and my body was on the same page, and my heart was in another. My mind and my heart wanted me to stay in suffering. Oh, excuse me, my mind and my body wanted me to stay in suffering, and my heart, where our soul is, wanted me to change. But my body was so tense, it was so locked in. This is still what we are going through with where Christ was 40 days in the desert. This is also considered to be the abyss. It is our hell. Every single time we are about to ascend to a different level of understanding, upgrade in our own awareness and in our truth and in all truth that is, we have to go back down to hell every single time, dealing with the waters of creation, that chaos. And how well do you swim in chaos? At first, you might be someone who's constantly drowning. There are things in the water that we are probably afraid of. We don't know what's deep down in the abyss, in the depths of that dark water. We don't know. And we have to be able to conquer our fears to get to the point where we can finally walk on water with Christ. So I saw this within myself, and I felt that discomfort. And eventually, like I said, I put my arms around him. That was Christ leading me now into forgiveness of something. Forgiveness for myself. When we forgive, again, we are doing it to save our soul from suffering. And then that allows us to be better people for those that we love. And we can therefore change and do what is right for the greatest good. It's always about for the greatest good. And it's always about seeing God more than seeing yourself. So for several days, I'm changing the subject here because I wanted to talk about a couple of symptoms that I have been going through, and then hopefully I can go back and tie in, of course, with my experience and give you some understanding again of what the depth of this understanding is, so that hopefully you can see a solution and, of course, God in your steps. So I have been for a couple of days, which is ironic because I went one day and I was like, you know what? My breathing is really awesome. I have, after I mentioned the me and the ma, I think, and the breath of God, something like that in one of those videos, making that deeper connection, my breath became more stabilized. I was in awareness of that. And then as quickly as I noticed that, I began to gurgle. Lots of gurgling taking place inside of my chest. And it was so difficult to sleep for a couple of nights because of the gurgling. I've also been experiencing like a biting sensation. It's funny because in one of my videos I mentioned I was being bitten by a little tiny ant. And it's very similar to the stinging of an ant. But I've been feeling it all over my body. And swollen from time to time. And also, I wanted to add to this, although it's later on in my notes here. My heel, and I'll get to more of that, has also been very tender. And I hope to make that connection in this video as well, but it might be in another video. But, so in several of my videos, I spoke about smoke. Of course, the 40 days of Christ and his temptation within the wilderness, which is in relationship to Mem in the waters of creation. And of course, surrendering to God and receiving the Holy Ghost. But I ended up hearing in a movie, go look for yourself. It's all in the eyes. And do you see what happens when you poison someone's mind? So that is a quote that's from a movie. Go look for yourself. It's all in the eyes. Do you see what happens when you poison someone's mind? The eyes see what the mind has been created to see. So if we have been bred, of course, we're going to go through our lifetime right here. But in our DNA, we carry our mothers, our fathers, their mothers, their fathers, their mothers, their fathers. Everybody who is in relationship to us from the beginning of time, all the way back down to Adam and Eve. We are all related because of the very first couple. We carry the very first sin, the fall. And that was the fall to understanding. The fall to, I need to know why you are God and why I was God kind of idea. When we were kids and we were babies, of course, we hear our parents speak. Our parents point out certain things, and we end up putting eventually letters into words. When we don't even learn in school about certain words and phrases, it's just there because it's already been inside of us. We know what trees are. We know what the house is. We know all kinds of things. And it's reality because it's already been inbred in our DNA. That's why instincts, like animal instincts especially, all animals know how to behave and hunt because it's bred within them. It's already embedded in their DNA, and they naturally know how to do it. And if you have always been bred with disaster, destruction, negativity, and then on top of it all, you have nothing but negative experiences in your life, your negative experiences is going to enhance and bring out the negative DNA within your body and cause even more trauma in our life. So what you see with your eyes and your reality is based upon everything that you have learned on your own and from lifetimes before. And I think that statement, go look for yourself, it's all in the eyes. Do you see what happens when you poison someone's mind, is very powerful. Because then now, if you understand that and hold it to a greater portion of your learning, you'll be careful about what you even speak about. And I really have to watch myself lately. Lots of temptations have been coming into, I've been speaking words that I usually won't speak, or I am very careful of speaking about. And I am also thinking certain things, and I will go into depth soon. So when the mind is poisoned, the eyes will see that infection. It is an infection, and we spread that infection by talking about it. And these are not the eyes that see like God does. And that has to work with the ayin. Ayin. Those are the eyes that see truth. And we have to develop the eyes of truth through the raising of Christ within ourselves. And so a couple of days ago, or maybe it was yesterday, I was driving. And I remembered a recent situation between my husband and I. And it was very hurtful. And it also assisted me in making that decision during our recent argument, if you will, that he calls it, where I actually spoke to my mom about it, and then I heard the truth in my mom's voice. And I instantly changed my mind about my actions. But by remembering this situation, both of them went hand in hand to help me make a decision. And it wasn't for the overall good. Or it could have been, depending on who you are and your choices in life, to walk away or to stay. It's really difficult to stay when you feel unloved, unappreciated, unvalued, whatever the reasons. And people choose to leave. Constantly. Marriages are constantly broken up. Relationships are broken up. Families are broken up because people choose, whatever reasons, just to walk away. When my husband and I were arguing also, he got mad at me. He ended up saying, "You get mad at me, Christy, for even drinking your water." And when we were arguing, though, I lashed out and said, "Yeah, because you always drink it all and you don't put back." Well, that reminded me later on about Christ and the Samaritan woman at the well, and how Christ said that if you knew the water that I have available for you, you would have living waters. It basically is, and I'm not reading it precisely, as you can tell, but Christ offers living waters. And my mom, in our discussion, also brought up a water cup, and that if someone is always drinking out of your cup, who's replenishing it? And we have what is it? You can't give from an empty cup, whatever it is. I forget that saying. It's the same thing. You can't fill from an empty cup. When you feel drained, well, it's hard to give. And that is true. And it is true that you should replenish yourself. But there is a source. When you really rely on the source to fill you only, life will be given. And so I had to remember Christ. Christ is the only one that gives you life in living waters. It doesn't matter if my husband ever fills my cup or anybody else. Let them drink it. As long as you stay centered in love, understand your connection with Christ and with God, you will be filled with living waters. And you can look at this at the same way as who is poisoning your well. And then also, are you poisoning someone else's well? With your life, with your words, with your thoughts, with your emotions, with your attachments, with your actions. It's like you drinking a cup of water and never refilling it, right? Ironically, like I just mentioned, this is what Joe and our argument was half about. But the problem is that your ego, my ego, the ego, will instruct you to say that another person is constantly stealing from your well and draining your energy. But this path, if you really understand it, is not about blaming. If you really understand it, you know that your experiences are there for you, not happening to you. And it's about healing to the point of purification and, most importantly, perfection. So then I immediately, after, he yelled at me and thought about this, he is draining me. That is when my ego was feeding me. Oh my gosh. He is literally draining me and stealing my water, my life from me. And I was instantly going to make a decision based upon all of this. Again, the problem with choosing to run or abandon or forfeit this situation, my marriage, I am also choosing to abandon my own transcendence and awakening of my authentic self. We can't run from something and expect to learn anything different, because our patterns and our patterns are going to be repeated until we actually learn what the truth is. So Christ will help us see through the eyes of God, so clearly that our well will never dry out. So as I was driving, I really wanted to make the video while I was driving, but I knew I couldn't stop and do that and allow you to really hear me with clarity because of the wind. It really began to hurt. It stung my heart so deeply. But then I understood. I understood now the depth of what my past experiences were really all about and how I can change it. Again, for the greatest good, for God's glory, not for my own, for God's glory. And when you make a greater connection by understanding from a higher perspective, that is not your own, but handed down through wisdom, you can change, or you transform into your higher self, bits and pieces. Yet, we are still going to have another experience that is going to determine whether or not we will become our higher self. We have to be tempted to see, are we really going to stand by that truth or go back and fall? So I really hope that you can just bear with me throughout this entire video here. I know I'm bouncing back and forth. I'm filling in with lots of my experiences. And of course my experiences are here to hopefully give you clarity on your own experiences and help you to make connections. And I know I say that a lot too. So my husband and I had another experience that connected us even to our recent argument, if you will. For me, it was just a conversation between two individuals, that it was just misunderstood. But prior to, him going away for 5 days to an event, we had that argument, in his eyes anyway. But before that, another incident took place that kind of tied in or made this recent argument even more profound. But my husband has this thing about theft, okay? Especially after a couple years ago, we had someone come onto our property and steal a vehicle. So that really made him feel, I guess, kind of naked, right? Violated. And he felt threatened. And he has developed lots of animosity towards that. And of course, one of the commandments is do not steal. But it's not as it seems, okay? If we are really observant and aware of our experiences in life, the people in our life will help us understand certain aspects of our own. And even tell us where we are lacking. Everything, and this is beautiful, a rhythm. It's a rhythm, okay? And I hope to even get into that. So we have, of course, the Ten Commandments, which are our guidelines of establishing or the reestablishment, of the soul through love, or Christ, or Lord, or AUR, which is light. So I recalled this situation, the stealing situation, that is. And I was quickly and thankfully guided away from that sting of pain to understanding of light within it. So as I have mentioned, what I have been attempting to do is more of God, less of me. I also have been mentioning covet, idols, and of course the ultimate sacrifice, which is love. Not the idea that man has developed of love, but divine love, that sacred love, and that unity with Source. But let's talk about covet. It means to yearn or to possess or to have something, anything. And hear this. He covets time for exercise and fishing. We can covet anything and everything in our reality. We have to establish what we are doing and why we are doing it. And of course, what is it for? Who is it for? What and who, right? I can't remember precisely my thoughts or the exact revelation, but I wanted to really start recording this as I was driving a few days ago. But of course I was driving and I couldn't, record because of course you guys, one couldn't have probably heard me anyway, but this is not even important. So I'm just kind of rambling on here. As we establish healing within our lives, we will establish the commandments. But first we must understand them. And it's really hard to begin even understanding it if we don't like rules, right? And I have been one that I have never liked to be told what to do. Although I was very good at being a student and being told what to do there, I didn't like school. I didn't care for that kind of stuff. I never got into trouble. I wasn't a very bad, unruly child, but I questioned authority. And many of you probably do as well. So if we don't like being told what to do, and I especially don't like being told what to do by my husband or my mom or anybody else, okay? Nobody wants to be told what to do because it makes us feel like what we're doing is wrong. It hurts the ego. But if you understand what the commandments really are and how they are definitely there for you as a guideline to get you closer to your truth and God, most importantly to God, you'll welcome it. And so realizing why you are doing it to begin with. And the main reason is to re-establish the soul. The first commandment instructs us to not have any other gods before God, and to love your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and to love the neighbor as yourself. So I have explained that in my previous video, so I won't spend too much time on that. If we use the commandments to truly love and respect others, we will ultimately learn how to love and respect God. But really honor God. That's what it means. When we finally understand something to its truth, not what you think it is, to its truth, you begin to do what worshiping and honoring is all about. When we covet, possess, and steal, we are definitely not loving anything. Yes, we train ourselves to walk in love, but we seek to return the return of it as well. We have been so trained to say, okay, love is a two-way street. It's not. And especially in marriages. Everything breaks up because we feel that you are not giving 50-50. It's supposed to be a 50-50 thing. No, it's 100%. 100%. No matter what. So then we develop attachments, expectations, and judgments. And all those lower vibrational feelings come along with it. And then we act out on those behaviors. We even think that thinking of an individual, having feelings for an individual is love, when in reality it's possession, and it's even coveting. It's even stealing. If you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours forever. Now, can you imagine giving a love so freely that it may never be returned to you, and you still give it? It's difficult for this reality. Isn't that what God really does for us? God is this ultimate form of love. Always there, always giving, but waits for us to make an acknowledgement of it, return back to it, and love it with all of our being. To the point that when we finally rediscover what God is within our lives, we honor it. We worship it only. And we see how the absence of it has really made our lives difficult. When we constantly have someone in our mind, in our hearts, we think that it's love, but it's possession. Our mind and heart keeps the individual imprisoned because energy is always flowing whether or not we are with that person or not. I don't have to be with my husband to drain him, and he doesn't have to be with me to drain me. A thought, an emotion is all that's required. The ultimate freedom is the liberation of the mind and heart, where the sexual force is used to honor God, who is first and last. So just like my exercising, I explained how before it was controlled, it became a need. It was a covet, a daily requirement, a possession. I wasn't doing it for its ultimate goodness of honoring God. We only learn the truth by going through it, and most importantly, by not thinking of ourselves. Or simply put, understanding your experiences without placing blame. Learning about your behavior, your characteristics, your requirements, your expectations, your obsessions. Everything, and I mean everything that happens within our lives, can teach us about our truth. Conversations speak loudly, but only if you can read between the lines. The Bible and its interpretations are misunderstood. Some take it literally, but still don't understand. And some take it symbolically, but still don't see the truth either. Read between the lines, because it's difficult to admit when you're wrong. I think I've mentioned it several times in my videos, and again recently, I don't know anything. And when I think I do, I still don't. And when you can be that way, you will always learn something about your steps. Today will be the first day that I live and love a man with freedom. And I can see how me letting go of the invisible chain around my husband's leg is setting him free. What's that thing, ball and chain, when you get married? Oh, you're going to have that old ball and chain, right? It's there for a reason. Because two people who want to come together, we end up possessing each other. And that's where possessions of spirits also comes into play, those scary movies. And that's for another time. And I can see this change within myself, and it's only been a few days. I can see it, and I can see his smile of me setting him free within my mind's eye. His spirit is no longer bound to me, and today is the first day that I feel free to. The change of me understanding now what it means to be married. The ultimate marriage here. The ultimate marriage is not even between physical people here in this reality, but it is required in order for us to understand sacred marriage. And by me having that awareness, I mean, I tell you, if you can feel what I have been feeling of this freedom that I have developed, but don't get me wrong, my freedom is being tested as well. It felt awesome a couple of days ago when I had all this revelation. It felt awesome. And every time we understand something, we are going to be tested to see if what we understand is true and if we can uphold the law. In setting ourselves free from all attachments, we are free to truly love a godly love. And that's what it's all about. Sacred marriages is about a godly love. When you can love your husband, wife, just as if you were, and this is to make you understand about purity, you wouldn't look at your sister the same way we in this reality look at our husband or wife. We wouldn't. We're not supposed to. And I know the negative aspect of that, but we're not going to talk about that. But when you love people for what true love is designed to be, it's like loving. You're supposed to see your person, your counterpart, as someone you see with purity. And it's really hard to explain. To make sense, because this reality has so much negativity around, what is it? It's called incest, and then of course rape is available, or not available, takes place in this reality. So it's hard to talk about this, but we wouldn't look at our moms and dads in a sexual form. So isn't that a pure form of love, right? Too. But even still, because the human is so full of ego that even we can look at our fathers and moms and dads, and we really don't love them either because of every single thing that they have done to us, or what we think they have done to us, and whatever happens, So I know for me, in my relationship with my husband, he's always on my mind. Or he used to be. He used to be always on my mind, and I would constantly keep my eyes focused on the clock, wondering what time he's coming home. Is he ever going to call me? I miss him so much. It's a possession. It's a covet. And it's me draining my husband without even noticing that I am really draining his soul out of him, because I possess him so much. I'm keeping him on that ball and chain constantly. In Matthew 22:36 through 40, it says, Master, which is the great commandment in law? And Jesus said unto them, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, and thy mind. That's the first great commandment. And the second is unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So you guys know what the neighbor is. If you have followed me, your neighbor is your inner being. So the sexual forces of both male and female, that's your neighbor. But then you have to also understand that you're a soul that you don't know is your neighbor. You don't know the soul. And of course, you don't know God. It becomes your neighbor as well. So in my previous video, I mentioned smoke, my breathing, being a little gurgly and stuff because of the smoke. And I want to kind of tie things in. But I've also have had a stinging sensation and also something going on with my feet area, and I will tie all that in. Also, I want you to understand that in Matthew 5:17 through 20, Christ says, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill." And you can go ahead and read that, the rest of that for yourself. Now, okay, I apologize. I made so many notes here, so I will get to the symptoms and hook it up and make that connection for you. But I'm going to continue discussing about love now. The more that you learn to love, you'll learn to give freely. But the difference of giving and there's a difference in that giving and its happiness, knowing that in giving is the greatest form of love. So like when you are actually doing something for somebody, and I can say, me constantly having to sweep up the floor, when my husband drops wood everywhere and trails it all over the house, it does from time to time get to me, and it has in the past. But when you can get to the point of, I'm happy to really do this now, you are actually doing it for its true purpose. When you can do something because it really is going to make somebody else happy, and you are doing it and giving it, you're changing yourself to be a reflection of love. But here, if you're doing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am. My husband spilled all over the floor again, or my father-in-law spilled, or they did this and they did that, and I'm the one who has to clean up all the mess all the time. But I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm the better person. Well, you've crossed out what you think you are doing that's good. Your negative mindset and your negative energy, that's two things, your mind and your heart, are going against the action that you're doing, and you're crossing it out. And then your reality is going to come back in and have, instead of a good thing, it's going to have 2 or 3 more negative things. It really comes in threes. So it's never forgetting God in every occurrence within our lives. And we just have to work our way up to that. It's every single day, getting stronger, developing more wisdom and strength, and that's it. It's not done overnight. And this is the ultimate dance. This is the magical flow of music. This is the movement of the waves of the ocean. This is the sacred marriage between you and the soul, never forgetting God and therefore united with the ultimate source. The sacred marriage and sex. It's not about intercourse. Of course, we have that opportunity here in this reality, but it is a sexual dance that takes place within you because you are honoring your neighbor, your soul, and source. You understand all of that. And it's really intoxicating. And that's where that ambrosia comes from. A woman or the female energy should be receptive to her companion. Receptive doesn't mean overpowered or enslaved, like this reality makes a woman feel. A woman in the female energy that is receptive to her companion is open to receiving the seed of life, and in time receives the resurrection of the flame. This becomes the elixir of long life. This love is intoxicating. Just like alcohol, but this love brings us bliss or Eden instead of the drunkenness and stupidity. The thing about our ego is that it's very similar to being intoxicated. Because when we are drinking and intoxicated, we aren't thinking with clarity, for one. And of course, we're drunk and we're flopping everywhere. But that's not exactly what the ego does. But the ego does make us ignorant. It makes us ignorant. It makes us clouded. Our mind is not really thinking properly, which means that our actions aren't we aren't making the greatest actions. The ego becomes so clouded and the spirit is lost because the ego is so strong and so intense that it actually makes us feel that our reality, what we think and how we feel, is far superior than what other people are doing in our lives. So sex is more than intercourse. It's a rhythm. It's a daily dance that doesn't just flow, but cooperates. I told my husband a long time ago that making love isn't about sex. Making love is everything that leads up to intercourse. Yet, even as I spoke all of that to him a long time ago, I didn't realize what the dance was all about myself. I kept saying things like, you know what, you're supposed to do this for me. You're supposed to make me feel this. So I was pointing fingers back then still, because I was still feeling hurt and unloved. I wanted more from him instead of giving more of myself. Without the woman's or female energy's full cooperation, there is no dance. There's no love at all. And this is when we follow Lilith instead of the Virgin. And this also works with what I have been speaking about in my other videos about the lovers. And the tarot card number 6, which also works with the Vav of the spine, which also makes a connection to every single thing that I'm talking about. So do you remember me mentioning about daydreaming, which works with manifesting? Daydreaming displays, in reality, when we daydream a lot, it's discontent and feeling unsatisfied in our life. That's why I don't make videos and teach you about manifesting anything, because it becomes an attachment to something. You're no longer pleased with your own life. You want something better than, and different people are going to teach you different things about manifesting. Yes, Christ manifested. He manifested the fish and the bread and the wine. And let's try to tie all of that stuff together as well. So, when we are unsatisfied, we create attachments, like I just said. And for ideas, like how we are supposed to live, the things that we should want in our life. And you hear it everywhere. Let's manifest this. Let's focus on this. So instead of you focusing on your truth, you and your connection with Source, that is our path. That's what we have been brought here to do. Of course, because God is so great. God gives us the choice to make. We can have this life. We can manifest all we want. We can do anything we want in this reality by our own decisions. God loves us so much, but He allows us, hey, decide what you want on your own, but I hope to see you soon. That's what this love is all about. Our purpose is to create the flame, reunite the flames, and alliance of the flames, and allow the flames to rise. So the 3 flames of male and female, but also Christ, becomes 4 flames. And this works with the letter Shin, which reveals the holy name of God. So I have noticed something about the way that I have my tone now. My tone in the way that I am speaking to my husband has definitely changed. And I'm not saying it's not going to be perfect, because again, we're going to continuously have experiences to see if we have really become what we say or think we have become. But I have noticed that. And I'm noticing how there's definitely a difference, and I'm going to continue on that in a little bit. We will be able to see the truth of who you are in the way that you speak, okay? But most importantly, in the tone of your voice. Every time that we get triggered, what happens? Our tone shifts. We get aggravated, and then we feel as if we have to defend ourselves. Or we have to make that person feel bad about what they are going through. We're trying to get to a point of communication where nothing causes the disturbance of the soul. That even within a heated conversation, the most intense conversation, you are at peace and will not feed into the already negative situation. When we react harshly, or any time that we react in a negative way, it means that there's still healing, but most importantly, there's understanding that still needs to take place. Understanding comes from the Holy Spirit. Wisdom comes from Christ, yet both are acquired through the higher intelligence of the heart. Okay, so again, let's try to link all of this together. And the smoke that I told you, I spoke about, because I've been having that experience where there's smoke, there's fire, right? This also connects with the key to the bottomless pit. The key to the bottomless pit is when the Holy Spirit or Mother and Father here have made their connection and created the Star of David. This Star of David is because you have developed wisdom through the throat, the area of the throat within the tree of life, and you understand what the Holy Trinity is about, what sacred marriage is about, understanding it. You can't just assume you know and think you're there. So earlier in my video, I mentioned the seed of life. This works with the Hebrew letter Teth, or Tet, depending on, and ironically, Tet is a Vietnamese and I think it's Chinese New Year, which I am half Vietnamese. We used to celebrate Tet every single year growing up, but I haven't done that, of course. I don't know, you guys wouldn't know that. I haven't done it since I got married. So, but anyway, this reveals the fifth angel, and it works with the force of ether. So it talks about in what is it? Receiving a star that fell down from heaven and went down to the bottomless pit. So that's spoken about in the Bible. Let's see here. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun of the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. So where there's smoke, there's fire. And for me, of course, I have asthma, and you guys know that. Or I have lungs that are compromised, if you will. I go through periods of them being extremely well, and I have worked very hard to purify my lungs through my cycle and becoming completely healthy through the purification process. And I, not myself, okay, I'm doing the work. I'm conscious of it, but it is always Source that's doing the work through me, okay? And also through yourself. Source is always purifying you when you see Source. And unless we see Source within ourselves, the purification process is never going to be done and completed. So the bottomless pit is, of course, the abyss or the void. And this is also where Christ goes through for 40 days and where he's tempted in the wilderness. So, of course, it's in relationship with Mem, right? So when you have water and gas that's, mixing together, you get a boiling point. But because of ether in the water, and it's not ether in the water, it's not water like our water, okay? It's still a liquid, and the ether in there. Fire becomes the third element. But first, you're going to have smoke, because in order for that fire or the Kundalini to be ignited, something has to awaken it. Now, again, the chakras do not open up in the order that we think. So we've been told that the root chakra is number 1. It's actually the fifth one to be open. So the bottomless pit is nothing, yet it is everything. It is the eye of the nucleus of every atom. And here at the bottomless pit, which corresponds with the coccygeal body, the Kundalini gland, the coccyx, if you will, at the base of the spine, this is where the smoke arises from, which is mentioned in Revelations 8 and 2. The sun and the heart are darkened, which is the eclipse. And we are going to be going through an eclipse in April. That's highly significant, but of course, I tell you guys or I suggest, everything, of course, in our reality is something that is taking place internally. But if you're always focusing externally and forgetting to look within yourself, what you are trying to learn on the outside of you, be it, energy updates, it's not going to serve you. But if you can, and I know it's really fun, and I used to do that. I used to give you guys energy updates, but, I think it's more valuable if, I don't know what's more valuable, I don't know. I just don't want you to get tied up on something without really understanding your own personal walk. And so it says in the Bible, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit." This key, of course, if we are taking the direct path, the narrow path, is a key that descends. It unlocks. Only God is going to give you this key, and unlocks the Kundalini energy. So again, it rises again and becomes the mark, the seal And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. So you will have the furnace, where the Kundalini gland awakens, but you also have the furnace in the brain, which is fornix. Ironically, fornication, the root word of fornix comes from fornication, and they are linked together. And of course, when we are fornicating, going against the self, the Holy Spirit, the truth, and love, then the Kundalini doesn't even begin to open up, period. That's why the commandments is the law. And of course, the law is love. The true law is love and overpowers the 10 Commandments. And then the biting that I was talking about, that I was feeling, the sensations on my body, this goes with the locusts that emerge from the smoke. Now, the locusts are given power of scorpions, and scorpions have a sting. That sting is like vinegroom, an excretion of a vinegary spirit. So you heard I had a video about vinegar. And it stings. Sting in relation with the, in the Bible also works with the word smite. So God says that he will smite the wicked, which means the rigid principle of justice. The locusts are commanded to not harm the grass of the earth, which becomes your skin. And green things are pure or spiritual things. But the locusts are not allowed to harm nerves, but they are programmed to destroy destructive imaginings and physical toxins. And that's why vinegar is so beneficial in general for us. It purifies and removes toxins from our system. The sting is from vinegar, but also the locust. It's very similar to the biting of scorpions, like I just mentioned. Vinegar connects us to the cross, and Tav, which is the 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Vinegar purifies, but it also gives off a sting. So I also, because when the bottomless pit is open, of course, we're going to work with the flames, the 3 flames. You are going to, at some point in your journey, you're going to work with, the left serpent and then the right serpent. And then the 2 serpents have to work in harmony. So right now, what we are kind of dealing with is when we work with the 40 days within the wilderness and prior to the awakening of the true Kundalini energy and awakening to the truth of all things, our authentic self as well. We're going to receive justice. It's, and I've been watching, I love watching Noah, and of course it's been changed a little bit, and I don't mind movies doing that. It's good for entertainment, and if you know what the truth is, of course, then it shouldn't disturb you. But justice, of course, Noah's always saying it's about justice. To do this, it's just to do this, because his doing what God commands, and if it means of course, Noah is the one who also helps us get to one portion of the old way to the new way, old earth to new earth. He's actually, I was going to make another video about it, but Noach, means to rest. And I was like, what? To rest. Just like the seventh letter of the Hebrew alphabet of Zion. And God rested on the seventh day. So I was like, okay, well, we know Noah took, built the ark and all the animals, so 2 of everything, and delivered them to the new earth. And that's exactly what's going to happen when we awaken to our new self. We create a new earth within our mind. And then our mind is going to project that reality into this 3D form. So the more of us that wake up internally and create 5D living or infinite living within our own mind, the more that our reality is going to project it. But it's going to take time, right? How many years have I been doing it? How many years have you been doing it? I've heard so many people been doing it for 40, 50 years. Well, it takes time for you to really purify yourself, because you have to always be in awareness of yourself. The Hebrew alphabet of Tav and the cross has the value of 400. This is 400 years that Moses says that the Jews were suffering. It's highly significant, 400 years. But of course, it was 40 days in the desert, which works through Mem anyway. It also says here in Revelations 9, 3, and 4. Where is it? And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. So the stinging is, if you have received the key to the bottomless pit, you are more than likely going to be somebody who is going to have the key, or the seal of God upon your forehead. God's seal upon your forehead. I'm not saying, you can change your mind. Infinite Source always knows your next step before you even know your next step. So I know, like for me in my path, when I am receiving a vision, I see something, but I don't get ahead of myself. I don't think I'm actually there yet. I know I'm not actually there yet, but I'm giving that prophecy. I'm giving it in ahead of advance. And then I have to figure it out. And every single time it's going to change. So an apple might look like an apple right now. And today it might mean apple, but later on it's going to mean something else. And then whenever you find out the meaning to it later on, when you're ready, that apple still changes to something else. So maybe the apple means you're really at the seed part, but yet when you're at the seed part, maybe you are actually at the tree part, and that's just an example. But the apple transforms itself into different levels, and we have to figure that out. So Shin, of course, works with the Kundalini, but the Kundalini needs so many other elements to take place. It needs the Vav. It needs Teth, the serpent, which Teth is the serpent, but it also needs the Ouroboros of. It also needs Samek, which is the Ouroboros, because the serpent. It also needs the Nu. It needs the Zayin. It needs Aleph. It needs everything. And it needs the Zadeh. Zadeh. You have to be the righteous individual. There's so much to this. And I hope, even in my past, that I have helped you understand it. And I hope in this video I have assisted in that as well. But this is a huge turning point regardless. And I guess, the point of this entire video, we are taken to the depths, the darkest places of ourselves. So every single time we get to a level, we have to fall back down to these. So that's why you will often hear me or some other person talk about the void, the abyss, or Mem. For me, I'm talking about Mem all the time, the waters. We are in the Akashic waters, constantly relearning the truth. But until you are willing to move forward in truth, you don't receive the truth. If you have any resistance within yourself to receiving knowledge, and that means that you think you know it all, you think your way is the right way right now, that your suffering is more important. And I get it. I really get it. Yesterday, and I'm going to end this video because I don't want to take up too much time. I already have. Yesterday, I took myself on a walk. I went to the park on my own. And my husband was shocked. He's like, well, this is out of character for you. And all I could say was, change starts somewhere. That was me again, letting my husband out of his chains. But it's going to hurt him because now he's like, well, what's going on? But then here, this is his choice to make now. If he wants something to change for ourselves, then by all means, he can do so. If he wants to, create more of a deeper relationship, by all means. But by me allowing, I see now how I've freed him. Even when he was gone, in my mind, I said, I'm giving you your freedom. I'm allowing you to now live your life. If you want me in it, I'm here. If you don't want me in it, I'm here. But I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And I'm not going to have a thought about it. I'm not going to have an emotion about it. That's the plan, of course. But in reality, I don't know what's going to happen. And then I'm going to act constantly in love. And still, I'm going to be there even if he's choosing to have a separate life other than myself. That is the true sacred marriage. And honoring God instead of yourself. This is Christy. Much love.